Welcome back to Daily Aim. Today we are talking about the story of some successful Filipino startups.
Yes, and it is a book actually.
Yes.
Yes, the stories is in this book called The Finishers. And of course, the author is
Ezra Ferraz. So let's all welcome Ezra.
Hi, Ezra.
Hello, good morning, Ezra.
Okay, yes,
Thank
may dala
you.
kang book for us.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Ezra.
Thank you for joining
so
us.
this is the book, guys. Comprised of stories of Filipino startups, tech startups. Okay, so Ezra, can you share first with us your background as an author and your profession?
Sure. So I've been covering technology and business for different publications in the Philippines, and I was actually attending an event. And I was asking the different founders there who they look up to, and I said you could name anyone, guys. It could be someone local, someone international, someone you know, someone you don't know, and just time after time they all named foreign founders. So like Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, and I thought that was kind of unfortunate because if you want to build successful tech businesses here in the Philippines, you need local heroes.
But they look up to foreign businesses or investors, unfortunately. Right?
Yes, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think we also need the local element.
Yes.
Yeah, for the pride of the Filipino, because that doesn't necessarily mean there aren't any Filipino inspirations. It's just the fact that they couldn't even think of one.
Yes.
Yes, it said a lot to me when no one named a single successful tech founder here in the Philippines.
So that is really your profession. You're an author by profession.
Yes, an author by profession, a teacher, a researcher.
But you write more about, you're a technical writer. You write more about these kind of business or random stuff.
I've been focusing more on tech and business, definitely.
Tech and business.
Okay.
Nice. Okay.
So the way when you had that meeting at that one event. So what did you do from there when you spoke to those people and you had that feeling that not so many people mention Filipino entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it really inspired me after that event to really track down who are our most successful local tech entrepreneurs. And I tracked them down, I interviewed them, and I collected all their stories into this book. So people who want to build a business here in the Philippines can have local heroes that they can look up to.
Yes, through this. They'll get inspired, they'll get motivated, right? Okay, so how did you start collecting these stories?
Yes.
Yeah, how did you connect to this? How many stories do we have in this again?
Right, so there's 11 startups featured in the book, about 20 to 30 different founders. In terms of tracking them down, it was just a lot of legwork. I had to, some of these people were a little bit more visible. Some people were, you definitely had to chase them down and they were not so visible. Like one of the earliest ones was way back in 1998. So I really had to track them down.
Okay.
Now, what was your criteria in which stories that you wanted to feature?
So the criteria that I chose for inclusion in the book is acquisition. So in the tech world, when you make a tech startup, your goal is often to get acquired. So that means a larger company will buy your startup for a large amount of capital. So it's usually in the hundreds of millions of pesos, some cases billions of pesos. So yeah, that's the criteria I chose for including these entrepreneurs in the book, because it's a very
acquisition.
Those
that started their online or tech business and then bought it or sold it. Okay.
Yeah,
that's the criteria. All right.
Why did you not want to feature other types of businesses that are still on their own?
Well, because if you're a tech founder, most often the goal is to get acquired. You want to get a return on all this time and money that you put into your business, and even in your investors, they want a return on the money that they invested into your business. So I chose acquisition because that was the goal for most tech startups. I'm sure, including many of the ones you featured here.
Yes. Just so that they can have someone who can invest and who has the resources. Because sometimes here in the Philippines, as much as we want to succeed in the future, if we don't have maybe like fast internet, sometimes that's a hindrance in the things that we have.
Now I'm curious, is it really advisable to start your tech company and then sell it to these bigger companies?
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good strategy in the Philippines. So a lot of people think that when another company buys you out, something bad happens afterward. But a lot of the times, this larger company will give the smaller startup resources to grow the product even to become even better. An example is Sulit. So Sulit was already one of the top websites in the Philippines, as we all know. But when they were bought by Naspers, the company that owns OLX, they were even able to make the product even better for the end users. So it's not a sad story. It's a good thing when acquisitions happen. Our Philippine companies get more resources.
Yes, I think because that's that misconception.
They get more
Some
funding.
people think like when they buy a Filipino company, bakit? You're not doing so
but
well?
I actually personally thinking na baka mawala yung credit that they were owned or started by Filipinos, you know. But do they still get the credit, or at least do they own a share of the company once they are bought?
In terms of credit, all of them are definitely acknowledged as the co-founders, still as the original
That's
creators
nice.
of these inventions. In terms of shares, some of them do decide to keep some shares in the company, whereas others don't. So it's on a case-by-case basis for the ownership stake.
Can they stay as like a creative director or stay on board to give their input for the future of the companies?
Yeah, definitely. Some decide to do stay in some form, usually in the form of senior management. So that's
At
definitely an
least.
option.
Yeah, they're still part of the management at least. So that's just one of the options. But I think some just sold it entirely, right?
Yeah, some divest themselves completely of the ownership and they go off.
And maybe started another company or tech company or other business.
Yes, exactly that.
At least
Or
they get
maybe
resources, diba?
early retirement.
Why not, diba? Depends on the pay.
Yes, for the next part, we're going to talk more about some of the stories featured in the book,
Yes.
about what path they chose for their startups. So stay tuned to Daily Insight. What is one of the stories mentioned in your
Yes.
book that could be inspirational for some of our viewers?
Sure. One of the stories that I most frequently tell is the story of PinoyMail.com.
Pinoy Mail.
So it's something like a webmail, like a Gmail or a Yahoo Mail that you have today.
Okay.
So the story is, after learning that Microsoft had bought Hotmail for $400 million, these two UP graduates, Josephine Romero and Dominic Danao, set out to build their own webmail for Filipinos naman.
Okay.
So they did this, which I find the most inspirational of all, right in the heart of UP Diliman at an internet cafe in their university shopping center.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, I go there.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
you're sitting
that
next to the
particular
future
area.
inventors,
Oh,
diba?
It's a very humble place.
Yes,
Yeah,
extremely
you
humble.
wouldn't think that, they created Pinoy Mail right in that
Yes.
spot. Okay, so what happened to them? Who discovered them? Who did they sold this particular business to?
Yeah.
Sure. So, as I mentioned in the internet cafe, they would sit there and code the product and build it as people were signing in and out of the internet cafe.
Okay.
And over the course of the year, they were able to acquire 300,000 users, which is a lot for back then, because
Yes.
not many people were online
What
at the
Actually
time.
very into emails.
around what year was this?
This was 1998, 1999.
Okay.
So, and after acquiring 300,000 users, they were able to sell their company to the founder of Smart Communications.
Wow, that's big.
Okay.
Founder of Smart. Okay.
How did Smart find out about them?
Yeah.
He had heard about the business because they had grown so well, and they were one of the top Philippine startups at the time. And he
Yes.
reached out to them about possibly investing or acquiring them. And the rest of the story.
Okay, how long did it take for them to actually create this product up to selling it?
Yes.
So they were one of the quicker acquisitions in the book. It took them from founding to acquisition roughly about a year.
A year lang?
Wow, a
Okay,
year and
so
to be
they
bought
found-
out by a large company?
1 year
Really?
lang. Okay, so they found the company and then they got 300 users?
300,000.
300,000 users
Wow.
and then sold to Smart. Wow, okay.
So that's one of the ways that
Yes.
you can succeed with your business.
And also, Randy, I'm curious, nasaan na sila ngayon? What are you
Oh, yeah.
doing
Where
now?
are
Did
they?
they start a new business or retirement?
Oh.
Early retirement?
So the two co-founders actually went on separate careers for a while, but now they're actually reunited after almost 20 years to work on another startup, this one in financial technology.
Oh, see, at least, they're paying it forward. The success of their past startup, now they're investing in other startups.
I think they first enjoyed the money, the funding,
Yes.
the resources,
Oh.
and then now they're going back at it.
Yes, after 20 years, they're done being in retirement. Now they want to do something
And these are
else.
just students, right? Were they students before or graduates of UB?
They were recent graduates at the time they founded.
Nice. Still very young now.
Okay.
Okay, what are the other stories of startups?
Yeah,
there?
So
Another
one of
one.
the most famous examples is Sulit, and
Sulit,
what I find inspirational about them is, of course, it's one of the largest websites today.
Yeah.
But
The
they,
OLX.
they just started with 2,400 pesos in capital.
Wow.
2,400 lang, Rans.
Wait, what is Sulit? For some of us that don't know
Sure.
what Sulit
So
is.
Sulit, for people who may not be familiar, is a horizontal
Buying and
classifieds.
selling
Buying where you could buy or sell pretty much anything you'd like.
Like a marketplace online.
Yeah.
Ah,
It's
okay.
like the Filipino version of Amazon. Parang
Oh, okay.
online
So that's where
selling.
you go shopping.
No, I've never tried yung sulit before. I'm not really into online, guys. I'm very primitive. So, pasensya na. I've never tried buying, selling in these platforms.
Okay, so what year was this when they started?
Early mid 2000s.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So
they
after
were very popular, huh? And then
Mm.
everyone was shocked, surprised na, oh, bakit OLX na all of a sudden, di ba? It was the sulit was really known to, if you want to dispose your stuff, mga second hand, you just post it.
Okay.
Right?
So what's the story behind that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, they started with 2,400 pesos in capital, and they founded it above the room at their parents' house.
Oh.
And so one of the funny things is actually when they were starting building Sulit, they were still a couple. So when they were working on the project, their parents wouldn't allow them to close the door.
Oh, really? Wow! Oh, imagine people can build businesses in their houses and
Yes.
still be under their strict parents.
Right.
Exactly that.
Right.
But yeah, so it's inspirational because of course everyone uses OLX today.
Yes.
For pretty much buying and selling pretty much any object you can think of.
Yes.
Okay.
OLX, the owner of OLX is a foreign company.
Yes, now it's
How
owned
would it-
by Naspers.
Okay, so how was Sulit discovered by OLX?
So Sulit was discovered by OLX because they wanted to enter the Philippine market, and
Yeah.
Sulit was the top classifieds at the time, so they
Yes.
contacted them about acquiring them
Yeah.
so that they could have a Philippine classifieds because they have all these other classifieds around the world. So Sulit would be their bet in the Philippines.
Right, but you know, I'm pretty sure that they were already earning right even before the acquisition because it was really very popular. Right?
Okay. So it was already successful on its own.
Yes.
But after this acquisition, then it became. How big is now OLX?
Yeah, it's one of the top 10 most visited websites in the
In the
Philippines.
Philippines.
Wow,
Okay, so
okay.
do you still know the story of these founders? Now, where are they now?
Yes.
What are they doing?
So the OLX founders are also working on other initiatives
Okay.
related to startups.
Wow. See, at least they're not. For the ones that you've mentioned, they still want to continue building other startups and paying it forward with those types of businesses. What about what's another story that you can tell us featured in your book?
Well, actually, just to comment on that, I think most of the people here, which I find inspirational, are definitely all finding ways to give back to the Philippines.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's
either
nice.
in the form of building other startups or
Uh-oh.
investing in other
Or
startups.
supporting the
Yes.
community of tech
Yes, or
startups.
through
Yeah.
mentorship, yes.
That's very commendable.
Yes.
Because of me, if I were bought out, I would just
Oh,
retire. I would
and we
just-
have to thank Ezra also for collecting these stories.
Yes,
diba?
because
We
these
wouldn't
are
have-
not known to people.
Correct. We wouldn't even have an idea that these are owned by Filipinos, diba? Tapos nabili lang sila ng foreign companies. At least we can still track down na Filipinos talaga yung may gawa
Yes.
before they were acquired,
Oh,
right?
if we can mention one more story that you can think you want to highlight.
One more quickly, I'll give you an anecdote.
Okay.
So one of the companies in there, he was a social media marketing company, and he was actually interviewing for a job with for a social media marketing position, but he turned the script around. So instead of being interviewed for the job, he offered his services as a company to the person interviewing him, and he was able to successfully sign them as a client, as his first client.
Really?
Oh, imagine that. Imagine you're the interviewer.
You were applying for a job,
Yes.
and you got.
It's
that
like
interview.
I think you want to hire me. I don't know. I want you to
Yeah.
be my client.
Yes.
Yeah.
So little details like that, I hope inspire Filipino founders on how to succeed here in the Philippine context because it's very, very different. So these stories are very important for us to
Yes.
internalize and tell one another, and hopefully they become like our local myths and lore.
Yes, yeah. So that other people who are starting their businesses, or other aspiring entrepreneurs, can be inspired by stories like this.
Right.
Okay. So make sure to stay tuned. We're going to talk more about some tips for our aspiring tech entrepreneurs on Daily Insight.
If we are, for example, kami ni Randy, nakakreate kami ng something really nice na very promising, how do we look for investors
Yes,
to
oo.
buy the us or fund
Based on the interviews that you've had with these other
Yes.
successful companies, how can we tap those investors to acquire things like that?
Sure, so they don't just appear out of thin air. What happens is usually these entrepreneurs have previous relationships with the companies that eventually acquire them. So they're either working together as partners, or they may have already invested in them, or their clients, customers. So they already have some familiarity with them, and that's why they become an attractive target to be acquired.
Okay, so it's like I think a small community kasi Randy.
Yes.
They just really know each other now.
Yeah, you really got a network, diba?
You really don't need to, I think, tap or look really for investors because you're connected in one way or another, no?
Yes, I think the lesson is you can't just sit there at home waiting.
Yes.
Someone's gonna call
You
you.
have to
I'm
create
gonna
something.
invest $1 million in you. You gotta network, make these connections,
Yes.
and things like that.
And create something that's really promising, diba? Really valuable for you to get the attention of the investors.
Yes. So what about some other advice that you can give some of our viewers, especially those who are aspiring in the tech industry?
Sure, I have plenty actually. So one of the most interesting things I've noticed in the book is some of the successful founders that I featured were previously employees at the other successful startups also in the book.
Oh, okay.
So
Employees of the other.
so it's this trend that I noticed. So if you have exposure to seeing other people successfully build a tech startup in the Philippines, it changes your frame of reference of what it's possible to achieve. Because unfortunately, I don't think a lot of us think that the Philippines is this great innovation hub. But if you have exposure and you're working with people every day who are doing it, when it comes time to leave your company and start your own startup, it'll help you execute and be inspired when it comes time to face the problems that you'll inevitably face.
I think that's really good advice for those. Put yourself, be exposed to that
Out
industry
there,
first. Be in another startup, see how it works and what doesn't. So that way, when you end up starting your own business, you at least have an idea of what to go through.
It's like practical application. It's not all theoretical, di ba? Kasi kung books lang ng books, but that's still very different when it comes to really being exposed, di ba? You see these people, and then they get to be your inspiration.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I really encourage not just to expose yourself to founders, but expose yourself to the founders who've really built large-scale businesses in the Philippines, because that's a very small minority of
Kumbaga,
people.
think big, no?
Yes, yes.
So that's number one.
Yes.
Exposure to this founders or creators.
Yes.
Right?
If they want to know who some of those founders are, they can find out diba,
Yes,
from the finishers.
Right.
So if people want to know more about your book, maybe they have questions for you personally, how can
Maybe
they?
other advice, diba?
Yes. How can they reach out to you?
They could just contact me on my personal Facebook. It's pretty much like my LinkedIn.
Okay.
Ezra Ferraz.
Ezra Ferraz.
Okay.
EZRA, FERRAZ.
And if they want to buy your book, how can they avail of that?
So it's available at Central Books nationwide and as well as Fully Booked.
Fully Booked
okay.
Central Books. Yes.
Yeah, Central Books, that's where I always go.
Love books.
Yes. Okay, so we wanted to give a special thank you to the ones who introduced us to Ezra Ferraz.
Bobby Cristudo of AdMob Philippines.
Yes.
Thank you, Bobby, for connecting
Thank
us to
you.
Ezra.
If you have
and
any other friends,
more.
introduce us.
Actually, we will guest some of his friends.
Ayun,
pa.
marami
He's really
pala.
connecting us. Thank you, Bobby. Hello.
Yes, and we'd like to thank our sponsors, to the Arena Weekend Market, and also...
And for me, for the Happy D, thank you so much for my dress.
Yay! So we hope you enjoyed this episode. These are mornings filled with meaningful business talk.
Giving you useful advice on how to win at your career.
I am Randy Bernardino.
I am Mayan Manzana, and this is
Daily Insight.